Here's another old video from the vaults that I did 7 years ago in February 2012, but it never made it to YouTube. I want to make something today that I've been thinking about for quite a while. That's what I do sometimes, is I dwell on something and kind of prepare it in my mind until I think I know what I want to do, and then I set about making it. This, I don't have a fancy name for it, so I'm just simply going to call it smoked salmon pastries. They're little individual sized pastries with bechamel and salmon inside. You could put these out on a buffet. They would make a great appetizer. These would be really nice for a fancy luncheon. They're fairly easy to make if you don't mind making bechamel. I'd even make these for a potluck if I wanted to garner the attention away from all the other cooks. So, having mentioned all that, let's get into the ingredients I'm going to be using for making my smoked salmon pastries. I have 1½ tablespoons of butter. I'm using clarified butter because I have it. 1 1/2 tablespoons all-purpose flour. 1 1/2 cups, which is 355 milliliters of milk. 1/8 teaspoon freshly ground nutmeg. You can use nutmeg from a spice bottle. 1/8 teaspoon of white pepper. 3 ounces, which is about 85 grams of peas. You can use fresh or frozen. I'm using frozen. 1 ounce, which is 28 grams of Gruyère cheese that I've finely shredded. 5 ounces of smoked salmon that I'll be chopping. If the color matches my shirt, it's because I planned it that way. That's what we call costume design. Salt to taste. I have 1 package, which is 1 pound or 454 grams of phyllo dough sheets. I've mixed together 1/4 cup of butter that I've melted and 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. I'll be using that when I assemble the phyllo dough sheets. You can add more if you need to. I'm figuring about 1/2 cup total for my phyllo dough. And then finally, totally optional, is sesame seeds for garnish. I'm going to use them because I have them and I think they make a nice fun garnish. So those are the ingredients I'm using today. My first step here is to make my bechamel. So I've got a pan heating on the stove. Going to put my clarified butter in there and my flour. Stir that up. And I want to cook this flour for maybe a minute over low, medium-low heat. It might just start to change color. I don't need to darken this. This is called a blonde or white roux. I've let my pan cool here a little bit. I think it makes it easier to stir in the nutmeg and the pepper without it forming lumps. All right, I'm going to bring my heat back up here again, and I'm going to add my milk. I switched to a spatula because this red spatula makes it easier to work with as far as keeping the bottom clear. I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and then I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes, and I'm going to stand here like a dedicated soldier and stir this for 10 minutes constantly, and that will make my bechamel. What I should end up with is a nice smooth bechamel that doesn't run off the spatula like that. It should give me what they call a coats a spoon stage. A nice, smooth, velvety coating. So this is going to take me a good 10 minutes or so as I bring this up to a boil and then stir it constantly. I have faithfully stirred this for 10 minutes. You can see now how it leaves a coating on that spatula. That's what I want. Now this will develop a skin very rapidly if I just leave this exposed to the air like this. So I'm going to get a piece of plastic wrap here. Probably it's better to do this with my fingers and just gently, because that's hot, I'm going to push this plastic wrap down onto the surface of my sauce here. It's sticking in places because of the heat. There we go, that's better. Just gently push it down onto the surface. Make sure it's all covered. And then that will prevent a skin from forming on the surface of that bechamel. I've melted about a tablespoon of butter in my larger ceramic pan here, and I'm going to cook my peas for about 6 minutes over medium-low heat. The bechamel, by the way, simmered over low heat the entire time. Okay, I'm going to put a cover on that. I'll come back to that and stir that periodically. I'm ready to start combining my filling here. I chopped the salmon up pretty well. There's my Gruyère. I let the peas cool down a little bit. Now I'm going to stir my bechamel in there. This has had a chance to cool down as well. And gently get this mixed up. I don't want to crush the peas. I do want to taste this for salt. I have my red handled tasting spoon out here. Definitely going to need a little bit of salt. Maybe not quite half a teaspoon. That's good. That's nice. Not too salty, just a little bit. All right. That's combined. Now I'm ready to start assembling my pastries. I've opened up my package of phyllo dough here. This package comes with 2 envelopes, which is nice. One can stay fresh while I'm working with the other one. And then this should unroll very nicely. Okay, I can cut this excess off. I don't need that. And then I have a piece of plastic here that I put aside to help keep this moist because it is kind of dry here today. And I've got, you can see a little bit of tearing there, but that's all right. Here's my oil and butter mixture. I'm just going to lightly butter this. Just start off. Spoon a little bit of my filling. Onto my phyllo dough. I moved it in a little bit from the end here. That'll be obvious in a moment as to the reason why. Butter that lightly, bring in the other side. See, this is why it doesn't matter if it tears a little bit around the edges, because those torn edges are going to be tucked inside. And I've kind of shaped my piece here to form like a triangle. That makes sense. Now I want to roll this. Let me butter it first. Roll this last end over, and that'll contain the filling and keep it from coming out the end while I'm rolling this up. Like so. Gonna butter that final flap well and tuck that inside. Then butter that. And there's my little triangular pastry. Here's my sesame seeds. I'm going to do this over the bowl. Just want to lightly garnish that with sesame seeds, and that's what it should look like. Put that on a baking sheet. I've got a baking sheet that's lined with parchment paper. I'm going to place these on there as I'm doing them. I'm going to do a close-up of this. Hopefully it'll help you to see what I'm doing. If you find that your filling is a little bit too moist and it's breaking out of the phyllo dough, then do this. Combine two sheets. That's what I'm going to do with this. I have enough phyllo dough. I mean, I've got a full box here. There's more than enough to make all of these pastries. So there's no problem as far as doubling up here. I think part of the problem here too is that I'm getting some drying because it is dry here in Southern California today. Okay, that should work. Again, fold this end over first to enclose the filling and then start forming my triangle. Close that in. So there you are. Give it a nice coating of oil. And sprinkle it with sesame seeds and put it on the baking sheet. There are my pastries. I got 15 out of those ingredients, so I'm going to adjust my estimate yield down some. I am heating my oven up to 400 degrees with a rack in the upper third of the oven. I don't need to cook these through because the filling is already cooked. I do want to cook the outside shell and get it browned a little bit. I'll watch these to see how much they start to expand. If they expand too much, the filling will break out, and that's an indication that the inside is boiling. So I don't want them to expand. I really just want to cook the pastry, the phyllo dough, and brown them a little bit. If I sense that they're cooked enough, but they're not browned enough, then I'll fire up the broiler and finish the browning on top. But those are ready to go in the oven as soon as it comes up to temperature. And there they are, hot out of the oven. I baked these for 5 minutes at 400 degrees. I noticed that some were just starting to swell a little bit, so I turned the broiler on high and left these under the broiler for 3 minutes to finish browning. I think they're beautiful. I'm going to let these cool for a few minutes and then they'll be ready to taste. Okay, so there is one of my smoked salmon pastries. Wow. That is really delicious. You can taste the smoked salmon in there, but it's not an overpowering flavor. It's a nice, delicate flavor. It has enough salt in it. I didn't highly salt it, as you saw. I think the Gruyère, once it started to melt in there and become part of the mixture, I think that added the additional salt. So it's like salted perfectly. It's very delicious. It's very light. It's very savory. I think these would be perfect for just about any occasion if you don't mind working with phyllo dough, which can be a little bit difficult at times. So, excuse me, but I have to go enjoy my smoked salmon pastries.